have Alex, who was born in France and lives now in Ubud, Bali. And he believes that if we change our relation to ourselves, then we can step up in the world and have better relations with others and with the earth. And using simple and effective techniques, Alex is now on a personal mission to impact others and enable you to live your life to your fullest potential. He's also founder of Be Greener, a community of 100+ business change makers in Indonesia, and Refill My Bottle, the app listing where people can refill their water bottle. And we have Dr. Marc here as well. And Dr. Marc is a medical doctor, university professor, author, poet, entrepreneur, wellness trailblazer, and perpetual student of life, trying to coax the world towards worldwide wellness, and has spent more than 30 years practicing and researching holistic health, and published more than 100 peer-reviewed scientific papers and many books and technical texts on wellness and natural medicine. He's also the author of illustrated children's books, Love and Everything, Bing and Bang Begin, The Beautiful Mare and the Boy Who Gave Thanks, founder of the Extreme Wellness Institute and co-founder of the Bathe the World Foundation and co-owner of Extremely Alive Wellness Tonics and Mara Hot Springs. That is quite an incredible biography from two incredibly formidable men. So a very warm welcome. I'm going to leave you two both in conversation to share all of your amazing experience and wisdom with us here at Inspiration. So over to you, Alex and Marc.
Thank you. Very, very happy to be here. Can we hear you, Marc? You need to unmute yourself. You're muted. You are muted, Marc.
Yeah, now I'm not. Thank you.
All right. So let's start with just 2 minutes meditation. I do that for myself, and I wonder if maybe others would need that. So just close your eyes and just take a deep inhale. And open your mouth and let it go. I invite you now to drop into your environment, connecting to the different sounds around you. Very lucky in Bali to be in nature, so connecting to the different birds. Wherever you are, just observe the sounds. Just check in, how do I feel in this space? What's going on? Do I feel safe? Can I make myself feel safe right now? And I invite you now to connect to our energy, to the energy of everyone in the group. Maybe you already connected with other participants, maybe other presenters. Just check in. How do I feel in this space? How do I feel with these people? I invite you now to do a little check-in, a little scan of the body. What's going on in the body today? What am I working with? And just observe. Maybe set an intention to be present for the next hour. Give us your full attention. Very honored by your presence. We'll make sure you get the most out of the next hour. I invite you now to feel love in your heart. Just feel love in your heart. Just for a second, allow that to feel it in your heart. And let it grow right in front of you. And maybe visualize someone that needs some love today, right now. And just consciously direct your love to that special person in your life. Just bring awareness back to you now and just observe, is love gone because you gave it away, or is it still there? And now feel it again. Feel your heart and feel this ball of love now getting out of your body, and let's bring it all collectively above ourselves and just for 1 or 2 seconds. Let's send it to the rest of the world. So much love is needed in these dark days, my friends. So let's spread it. Everyone inhale. And let it go. All right. I want to start by thanking Ben and the whole team of Inspiration Festival. It's a great honor to be here. And I'm immensely excited to bring you Dr. Marc Cohen. I'm his #1 fan. Maybe I'm not, but I'm one of his biggest fans. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with him today. We had a chat with Marc a few days ago, brainstorming what could this session look like. And we thought, let's focus on something real that is going on in the world right now, which is this overall overwhelming anxiety, because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen. And that's a scary place to be, the unknown. So my intention and our intention with Marc today is to give you some really practical understanding on how you can use the breath to deal with anxiety. And what's amazing with, you will discover with Marc, is he's really a bridge between bringing you a lot of scientific explanation about everything that's going on when we breathe and when we embrace those breathing patterns that we're going to explore today, but also bringing a real flair and poetic aspect to it so that it stays with you. So let's start. How are you, Marc?
I'm great. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Hannah and Ben and everyone for inspiration. So happy to be here and happy to be chatting with you, Alex. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, it's magic is always there when we connect heart to heart, whoever you do it with, and with Marc, it's always a pure joy. Okay, so my friends, we've got a bit less than 55 minutes. Let's dive right into it. There are really 2 big topics that I want to address when it comes to dealing with anxiety. And the first technique is called CO2 tolerance. And we're going to explain and understand how building our ability to be okay with high level of CO2 and giving you some practical tips and exercise to build your CO2 tolerance can be a really life-saving daily practice, so that when stress comes in an unconscious way, unwanted way, now you know what to do. Because all we do is train our system, build habits. So when anxiety comes in an unwanted way, which is always how it shows up, now we know what to do. We've trained ourselves consciously by having these breathing practices so that we can handle it when it comes in an unwanted way. So we're going to explore that. And then we're going to dive into the science of, the Tumo, breathing, Wim Hof, a little bit of, adaptation that Marc and I have done with it. But I want you to understand how breath retention is actually a golden practice, and how playing with your CO2 and oxygen level can be really useful in order to get you into a place of really self-mastery. How does that sound, everyone? Good? Get some thumbs up? Yes, you're happy. All right, Marc. So let's dive with CO2 tolerance. Would you mind giving us a little bit of scientific explanation, what it's all about, and then I'll guide you through an exercise.
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it brief because I could talk for hours on just on this one topic. CO2 is actually your signal to breathe. You don't breathe because you need oxygen. You breathe because you need to get rid of, or you have the feeling to get rid of, carbon dioxide, which is a waste product from metabolism. So that's where the urge to breathe comes from. And a lot of people who are anxious, and I had a PhD student who spent 8 years just studying breathing. We published about 8 papers together, and I've published more than a dozen papers just on breathing and on hyperventilation syndrome, where if you're constantly anxious, you overbreathe and you deplete your CO2. And your carbon dioxide is the main determinant of the pH of your blood. Most of the acid in your blood is carbonic acid. There's also some other organic acids. And your lungs and your kidneys have this dual responsibility where your lungs modulate the carbon dioxide level and your kidneys modulate all the other organic acids. And your kidneys are like the long-term pH control, and your lungs are your short-term pH control. And that's determined by the amount of carbon dioxide. So when you overbreathe, you get rid of carbon dioxide, and that increases the pH of your blood, but it can also make you feel anxious. And if you hyperventilate, you start to get a bit lightheaded and a bit, sort of dizzy and anxious. And in fact, that's what happens in a panic attack. In a panic attack, you overbreathe, you get rid of the carbon dioxide. And people who, I used to work in emergency departments, and people would often come to the emergency department, think they're having a heart attack, but they're actually having a panic attack because they don't have enough carbon dioxide in their body. And if you breathe slower, and this is one of the main tenets of the Buteyko method, and we actually did a whole lot of studies on Buteyko method, including clinical trial and some laboratory studies on Buteyko, where you're trying to build up your carbon dioxide tolerance and stay relaxed in a situation where you've got more carbon dioxide. So then your kidneys will adjust, and the pH of your blood stays quite the same, but it depends on how much your kidneys and your lungs are playing off each other. So it's all in very fine balance, in homeostasis. And that homeostasis, which is determined by not just your carbon dioxide, but homeostasis in your body is determined by your temperature, by the amount of oxygen, by the amount of glucose, by the amount of water in your body, but certainly by the amount of carbon dioxide. But the very minute changes in homeostasis is due to your lungs and carbon dioxide, because your water balance, your glucose balance, your temperature balance are all more long-term changes. They happen over minutes, hours, over the day, and you can address them through your intelligence. You can put on clothes if it's a cold day, and you can eat when you're hungry. But breath to breath, you're adapting your carbon dioxide balance, and that is the very, very minute change in homeostasis. And when you get that right, you're in total bliss, because when you're in homeostasis, you're at one with the universe. You don't have to do anything to be totally stable. And when you're in stillness, you're in harmony with the whole universe, which is always still. Even though everything's changing, you're in harmony with the stillness of the oneness of everything. So you can fine tune that through the breath. And adjusting your carbon dioxide is one of the most potent things you can do to maintain that homeostasis.
Yeah, thank you for that beautiful introduction. And it's also an incredible way to boost your performance. So if you are wanting to really improve your physical performance, building your ability to work the high tolerance of CO2 is also an incredible tool. So simple exercise
just to continue on that,
can do.
Alex, I just want to mention there, with performance really is maximized. And actually one of my PhD students is Lauren Burns. She won the gold medal for Taekwondo at the Sydney Olympics. And we did a whole lot of research on high performance gold medal athletes to find out how did they live and what did they do to maintain performance. And one of the there were two factors that actually came across the research amongst all these multiple gold medalists. One was their friendship group.
We're just waiting for other people to join us from another group.
Okay, do we want to pause? What
Okay, so this time I'm going to ask Orit and your group to present your case.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Orit.
Am I on another call here?
Thank you, Teresa.
Dear.
Okay, so give me just 1 second. I'll just share my
What's
screen.
going on? No.
Mark is a popular man, everybody, so just bear
You
with,
want to mute yourself, Mark, while I talk? And
bear with us.
Sorry, I've just turned that off. Sorry, I've actually been on a medical cannabis meeting all day today, on a medical cannabis conference. I had to duck out of the medical cannabis meeting to come to this one, and I think that was on in the background. So I apologise for that. So I'm talking about elite athlete performance, and one of the key things that these athletes did was ice bathing. And they said they started it for recovery, but they kept on doing it for the forced mindfulness it gives them. And actually how that worked is when you can be in a stressful situation, and normally in a stressful situation, you start to hyperventilate. But if you can relax your breathing in a stressful situation, that's when your performance can be enhanced. And I sort of call it the James Bond effect, because, James Bond can be in this sort of chaotic situation and, everything's exploding around him and all this chaos is happening, but he can be calm and collected. And when you're in that calm and collected place, you can maintain your rational thinking, and then you can know, which door to escape from or who to shoot or, what's going on, and make the best of the situation. So to be able to build your carbon dioxide and prevent that hyperventilation is one of the key things for performance. And that came through with these athletes when they talked about being in an ice bath with forced mindfulness, where actually rather than being in an ice bath, which normally when you go into an ice bath, you start to hyperventilate. That's the natural response to stress, to a life-threatening situation, because being too hot or too cold is actually life-threatening. But if you can then relax your breath, calm your breath down in that situation, that's where you get performance. You're in a high stress, but you're also relaxed. So I just wanted to, and we can talk a bit more about that because I've got some tricks that people can do to maintain that. And I just wanted to make that point that, you know, the carbon dioxide tolerance means you're breathing less, even though you're in a stressful situation, which might be forcing you to breathe more. And anxiety is stress that naturally makes you want to breathe more.
Wonderful. So to continue on that, one thing that I do, and I dream to see for all the gyms around the world to have at reception, is medical tape. Wherever I go to a practice, I have a tape on my mouth. So one way to build your CO2 tolerance practically is just breathe through your nose. Because what's happening when you're, let's say you're running, after a while, you know, if you're starting to climb, you tend to want to increase, you know, the intake of oxygen, the release of CO2 is too much CO2. So you're, so basically a very simple practice is just to build your ability to only breathe through the nose and only go to the maximum of your capacity in anything you do to your capacity on sticking to nose breathing. And I promise you, just try for 2 weeks. Whatever practice you do, just tape, do it with the only nose breathing, push yourself, push your heart rate to the point where, oh my God, I need to breathe through my mouth. And then you just back off a little bit. And you do that for 2 weeks in a row. And then you remove the mouse and you let go and you don't try to control, and see the performance improvement. See how much more weight you can push, etc., etc. So I like to call it the, and I think I steal that from Brian McKenzie, to be completely transparent and know where it's coming from. And he's done an amazing job on CO2 tolerance, is breathing in gears. You know, when you breathe normally, your gear 1, nose breathing in and out, you don't even sense it. Gear 2, you inhale a bit more stronger. Gear 3, gear 4, gear 5. And really one simple tip is honor your gears. You would never start a car in gear 5. So you can start going gear 1 and then progressively increase to the next gear. That's one thing that you can take away. The second takeaway is breathe yourself in the state you want to be. And that's really cool. So instead of waiting for the signals inside my body telling me how I should breathe, now I reverse engineer it and I breathe myself into the state I want to be. So if there is a climb to do, I'm going to increase the pace of my breathing without having the signal of the body. And what it does is when I reach the top, I can recuperate faster. And one other thing that I tell always to athletes and that I work with is I'm not interested in so much into your performance during the practice, but I'm interested in how quickly you can recuperate. How quickly can you bring down your heart rate? And that's something that is not seen enough. So yeah, we could go on forever. And I think we're going to see in the coming years how building CO2 tolerance has ripple effect on the health in general. And as we know, you know, as we explained, it's the gateway to maintaining and controlling your stress level. So having that as a tool of self-control and self-mastery is absolutely wonderful, because you can just witness it. Oh my God, I can feel the heart rate goes up. As we all know here in this educated space, the breath is the gateway to your heartbeat. So can I breathe in a different state in order to slow down my heart rate? And I can do that because I can just witness what's going on. And all breath work is about, for me, is really developing that ability of self-awareness.
And just on that, one of the most profound ways to increase your CO2 tolerance is chanting. Because when you chant, you're doing prolonged ohms, you're doing very, long, prolonged exhalation. So that slows down the breathing. And as I say, when you're stressed, your breathing will naturally increase. This is the natural stress response. When you have fight and flight, a sympathetic nervous system, you get adrenaline, it increases your breath rate. And there are some hacks, and I think I'll share that what I call the 10 hacks to relax, because I want to give people as many tools as they can have. And this is 10 activities you can do with your body. And I actually came up with this about 2 years ago. I was in Bali and I ran a retreat and I was staying with Alex and I was trying to get people to do ice bathing and trying to get them to relax. And I started writing down all the things you could do with your body to simulate a parasympathetic nervous system response. And as happens very often when I'm trying to summarize medical information, it ends up as poetry. And this one actually ended up as, you know, it's a poem, but it's also a song and a little animation, which I can give a link to. But I call these the 10 hacks to relax. So these are 10 things you can do with your body that bring you back into parasympathetic mode. And about half of them are to do with the breath. So the 10 hacks to relax are: touch all your fingers, wiggle your toes, soften your stomach, breathe through your nose, sigh, smile, swallow, sing, la 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 la, flutter your eyelids and focus within. And if you think about those things, softening your stomach, breathing through your nose, sighing, even smiling, because when you're stressed and you're breathing hard, you purse your lips and you contract your, and you breathe like that. So if you're smiling, you're relaxing the facial muscles. So that leads to more relaxed breathing. When you swallow, that controls your breath. So all, you know, pretty much controlling your breath in this situation brings you into a parasympathetic mode. So even if you're in a stressful environment, and these 10 hacks to relax, I call them emotional first aid, because they allow you to relax on demand. So anytime you're scared, you're anxious, you're stressed, or in pain, in physical pain, you can do these activities and anchor your body and stimulate your vagus nerve and stimulate your parasympathetic response. And that helps you calm down in that stressful situation. And then you can much better cope with it. Brings you back into homeostasis by tricking your body into being relaxed. So it's a really good take home that you can just do, and no one has to even know you're doing it. You can just, you know, be touching your fingers and wiggling your toes, you know, breathing and relaxing. And these are all activities that you would normally do when you're safe in your cave. So the sympathetic nervous system fight or flight activities are things you do when you're running away from a tiger or fighting in battle. You know, you want all your energy focused on the outside world, and you shut down your thinking mind because you want to act instinctively. You haven't got time to think about what to do. You want to act from your instinct. You shut down your healing responses because you don't want to waste time healing yourself when you're in the middle of a battle. So that's really useful to focus your energy outwards. But then when you've survived the battle, you've escaped from the tiger, you come back to your cave, and that's when you can do the healing, nurturing activities where you can eat, where you can, you know, draw or, you know, do fine finger movements and, you know, mend your fishnets or sew or write or do creative pursuits, or flutter your eyes and flirt or sleep when you eat, and when you can breathe, relax. So that you can simulate these activities and create relaxation in any environment. So that's the 10 hacks to relax. And I can put a link to people, and there's actually a little cute video that we've made in animation, which was a song that friends of mine have performed for us. And yeah, it just makes it really accessible.
They are absolutely wonderful. And it's, again, the same simple concept of breathing into the state you want to be and doing those activities that you want to eat, you want to be flirting. So I'm going to artificially do it, even though I don't feel like it, I feel I'm dying, I'm going to do it. And as a result, I'm going to go into that state. And what's amazing, I do daily ice baths, I facilitate training with ice baths. And once just 2 weeks ago, we had one of the students who had done crazy ice baths, super relaxed. And I asked him to, for the sake of education, to fake panic attack in order for the facilitator trainee to support him. So he started to hyperventilate or superventilate because he was doing it in full control, just for the sake of, you know, the video, see what happens and how we handle it. But what happened is he became stressed and he could not handle the ice bath. So the opposite was also true. He was relaxed. He superventilated artificially just, you know, for playing. And 1 minute later, oh my God, he was in full on panic attack and couldn't handle it. So this is, don't underestimate the power of having awareness of what's going on, I train myself with those tools. So when they come up in an unwanted moment, I know what to do. I repeat this because this is absolutely gold. You can really take control of your emotions in those moments. Doesn't need to suppress them, just feeling of awareness so they don't completely consume you. So
there's a
I
saying,
love
I
the
think,
hacks to relax.
yeah, so there's a saying that fear is excitement without breath. So you add the breath to fear, and you can actually turn that fear into excitement and actually then respond much better. Because when you're scared, then your thinking mind actually shuts off. And when you're scared, it makes it much easier to be manipulated or do things that don't feel right with yourself. And if you want to know what the right thing to do is, the best thing is to be in touch with yourself, find that still point within, and then your actions and your thoughts and your words can come from that deep inner well of your being. But if you're scared, you go outside that center of yourself, and then suddenly you're doing things that you wouldn't have normally done. You're compromising your own ethics, or you're actually making mistakes in your life that have serious consequences because you haven't come from your own center. So to be able to center yourself and find that deep inner well of your being, that point of stillness within, then all your actions flow naturally and authentically from that deep inner well of your being. And to find that stillness is through the breath. As I said, that breath is the point of where you can really fine tune your homeostasis.
So Marc, I just want to give quickly that CO2 tolerance little exercise from Buteyko, and then I want us to move on to more breath retention and what's going on when we do the superventilation. So that simple exercise goes like this, and I do it every day, all the time, and I consider it one of the most important practices. So easy and powerful, and it goes like this. You can tape. It's easier when you tape. You can just shut your mouth. You're only breathing through the nose the whole time. And it goes like this. You're gonna walk, take an inhale, exhale. You pinch your nose. So now you're not breathing, and you're gonna walk and counting your steps without breathing until you feel a mild urge to breathe. You pause, you don't walk anymore. You look around, enjoy the beauty of reconnecting with your breath. And when you're ready, inhale, exhale, pinch your nose, and you go again. So to be fully correct, you want to do that, take 5 steps initially, then 10 steps for 5 times. So just to warm up and have some bit of a stretch of the lungs before you go for something more intense. But this is a wonderful, simple, accessible for any time you're going on a walk. Just add that little bit. Okay, I'm going to play with that little stress. Oh my God, I need to breathe. And can I play with it? Maybe I'm going to push myself a little bit. See, my heart rate goes up a little bit more. Maybe I'm going to shorten the recovery time. I'm going to take just a few breaths and then I go again. So I'm going to use to be okay when I'm not okay. Can I do more with less? And that's as simple as that. All of a sudden, I'm building my CO2 tolerance. And you can see, I do it with my kids. One cool tip is to do it walking backward. If you have that visibility, it's really good for the knees as well. So you add that to your practice. And it's a wonderful mindfulness practice because when you walk, when you breathe, you breathe. And it gives you also these moments of, oh my God, I'm breathing, I'm enjoying my breath, I'm alive, I'm recovering. And you get to appreciate that. And Marc is going to tell us after, when we talk about the different cycle of breathing, of that importance of appreciating and what happens when I'm recovering and I'm being, oh my God, I can breathe, and what's happening in terms of hormone production there. So yeah, that's a little bit of an exercise. Question: if you don't continue to practice breath retention, do you lose it? From Duncan. Do you mean your ability to improve your? You know what? I'm not sure there is exact science, my answer, but my experience with breath retention, it really depends on so many factors. How I slept, what I ate, if I'm digesting or not, what's going on in my mind. So really, for me, it's not really about how steady I am with my practice, but more about overall what's going on in my life. So I couldn't pinpoint to that. Same with an ice bath. I can do every day an ice bath, and then someday I wake up and after 10 seconds I have to get out because I didn't sleep enough, because my mind is occupied. And other days I haven't done it for a while, and I get in is the same temperature and I can stay for a long time. So, you know, it's, we are whole.
It's building resilience. So the more you can artificially stress yourself and stay calm and relaxed, that's practicing when the stresses are outside your control. So there's a whole lot of activities. I mean, going for a run is stressful. Going to an ice bath is stressful. Holding your breath is stressful. But when you're doing that voluntarily and being in control of that stress, you can build up your resilience in a very controlled way. As opposed to, say, some people, if we use an ice bath, for example, if they've got PTSD, if you've had past trauma or anxiety, you go into an ice bath, you reactivate that trauma and that anxiety. Because when you hyperventilate, when you go into a ice bath, you naturally do that. You actually reproduce the body chemistry and the breathing pattern of anxiety and trauma. Now that can be a bad thing if you're not expecting it and you get reactivated, but it can be a really powerful thing if you know that you're in control and you say, hey, I'm going to practice, reliving this anxiety, and I'm going to master it. And I'm going to be in control of it. And I know I'm not in a life or death situation, because even though I'm in an ice bath, there's a hot shower or a sauna or a hot tub there, I can warm up, or I can just warm my body up. I can get out anytime I want. So you're in control, but your body doesn't know that. Your body's still in a life and death situation. And this is really good to practice being comfortably uncomfortable. And this is a really important point. Again, the athletes talked about this, about the forced mindfulness, when you do something where your body forces your mind to be involved. But the point of getting comfortably uncomfortable, and that can be using heat, it can be using cold, it can be using food, fasting for a long time and until you're really hungry. No matter what it is, if you can get to that point, you're actually coming out of your comfort zone and letting your comfort zone naturally expand. It's sort of, you can think about your physiology like you would a yoga stretch. Like if you're trying to stretch in yoga, there'll be a point where you come to the limit of your flexibility. And if you're going to push harder, if you're going to force yourself, you'll pull a muscle, you'll strain yourself and hurt yourself and reduce your overall flexibility, because you'll be injured. But if you just go to the point where you're comfortably uncomfortable and breathe, and that's the important part, breathe, find balance in that point, you can tolerate being at the edge of that stretch and be comfortable there. And if you do that repeatedly, you'll find your flexibility increases naturally. You haven't had to force it, but suddenly your flexibility has grown just by visiting the edge of your comfort zone. So this is a really great practice. And we find most of us in modern daily life, we're too comfortable. We've got so many modern conveniences. The temperature's controlled. We've got as much food as we ever want. And our bodies don't get the chance to actually respond to stress unless it's outside of our control, and then we freak out. So it's really good to build practices in your every day where you're actually consciously and comfortably going to the edge of your comfort zone. And we can talk about it. There's a lot of practices we can talk about, but the process is to be consciously uncomfortable and then focus on your breath, so you can just be there and experience it comfortably. So this idea of comfortably uncomfortable, and as Alex said, that will change depending on if you're worried about something, how well you've slept the night before, whether you've eaten processed foods or whole foods, because that all changes your acid-base balance and your mental state. And your brain takes 25% of your oxygen. So if you've got worry going on in your head, you're suddenly, you've got all this mental activity that's consuming your oxygen and making you breathe more. So if you can slow that mental chatter down, and there's other physical practices you can do to facilitate that, then your whole body can become into balance more, and then your resilience is increased and you can cope with the other stresses of life so much better.
Amazing, Marc. One last thing on that, and I really want us to move on, otherwise we'll only cover half of what we want to talk about. Guys, all this is prep work, but the most important is what happened when stress comes now in, an interaction, an email that comes up that you don't want, a stressful interaction. And that moment when you're able to switch from, oh my God, what am I going to do with it, to, yay, I'm excited, I get to apply what I learned, is when you feel you win. It's like, no, oh my God, now whatever happens in your life, becomes an opportunity of you to apply what you learn. I remember me going to a hospital for an intervention and being excited, saying, yay. And because now I get to apply experiencing pain. No, I don't want any painkiller because I get to apply this whole idea of dealing with pain. But I can do it in a moment that is actually interesting and useful, not just getting into an ice bath. And that's where you really become a human. You really become in control of what's going on in the machine. And it is amazing what it does to you. You feel you're empowered with who you are. You can just witness, okay, anxiety is coming up. I'm not happy right now. Stress is coming up. And just boom. It's just about that awareness that changes it all. All right. Hope that was helpful to you guys. Build your CO2 tolerance, absolutely fundamental. And I'm sure in the years to come, we'll see the science of it all. Now, I want, Marc, for us to cover the science of doing those super ventilation, you know, whether you call it Tumo, Wim Hof, and for a lot of people that do holotropic breath work, they'll be interested in understanding, I mean, they'll probably know already, but what's going on in them? Why are we getting into this altered state of consciousness? Why is it, what's going on? I think that's interesting for a lot of people to understand. And then what's happening with the breath hold. So I'll let you explain that because I think that you have a brilliant explanation for it.
Wow. So we can go to a lot of depth here and we can talk about the whole 5 phases of breathing, if you like. So this is, you know, very quick introduction to what I call what is called the 5 rhythms. So the 5 rhythms is first described by Gabrielle Roth as a dance practice where she observed things in nature that went through the rhythms of flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness. And you know, so I've been dancing the 5 rhythms physically, and I've also been studying Chinese medicine and martial arts, which talk about the 5 elements in Chinese medicine, and they all sort of match up to each other, but that's a whole nother lecture. But when we're talking about the 5 phases of breathing, and when I first sort of defined this or came up with you know, very detailed explanation of this, it was actually when I was doing lectures for Wim Hof when he toured Australia, and I was giving the science behind the Wim Hof lecture, and broke down the Wim Hof method into 5 phases of breathing. So the first phase is just the flowing breath, where breath is just flowing in and out, and you're not even aware of it. You're not in control of it. It's just doing what it's naturally doing. And then to change from the flowing breath to staccato breath, you actually have to use your willpower. You have to decide, now I'm actually going to just start to hyperventilate or overventilate, and you purse your lips and you start to do, you know, big breathing in and out. And what that causes, that's staccato, in and out, backwards and forwards. And that's, you're acting like bellows, pumping the carbon dioxide out of your body. And with this method, the technique is to do it in a relaxed way as possible, because you want to get rid of carbon dioxide without making too much more carbon dioxide. So you want to do it when your body is relaxed, so your muscles aren't working, because the more your muscles work, the more carbon dioxide they'll make. So you want to be relaxed, use the most efficient form of breathing, which is your diaphragmatic breathing. So you don't want to use your accessory muscles of breathing, because that would make more carbon dioxide. And you want to expel as much carbon dioxide as you can. This is the staccato breath. And then what that does, it lowers your carbon dioxide, and by doing that, it raises the pH of your blood. And we could go really deep if people want to, you know, technical, but I'll very briefly, what I'll say is during that time, people say they're over oxygenating. They're actually not. When your blood has a alkaline pH, your hemoglobin becomes very sticky for oxygen. It's called the Bohr effect. And, you know, there's a few things that make hemoglobin grab onto oxygen much tighter. So when you hyperventilate, your hemoglobin will grab onto that oxygen so tight that your cells actually become hypoxic. So even though you're over breathing, there's a time when your cells become hypoxic. But then what you can do is you get dizzy, and because the calcium will bind to plasma proteins when you have alkaline pH, and you know, you get lightheaded, and you can even get claw hands because the muscles will contract because the calcium's not available because it's bound to plasma proteins. But then there's a point where you'll decide, okay, you know, 50 breaths or a couple of minutes of hyperventilation, that then you'll hold your breath. Again, you're using your willpower. And at that point, it's a bit dysphoric. It's a bit uncomfortable. You know, you're lightheaded, you're dizzy, you may see a few, you know, spots, and you may even be, you know, tingling in your mouth and in your fingers, or even contracting. And then you do a breath hold. And you'll find when you do that breath hold, you just don't feel like breathing. And it may be even a minute or more before you even start to even get even the inkling of an urge to breathe, depending on how much carbon dioxide you've expelled, because there's no signal to breathe because that's the carbon dioxide deficiency. You don't need to breathe. And then you can prolong that breath hold and you start to get the urge to breathe, but you can resist that. And you get to the point again when you're comfortably uncomfortable, where the urge to breathe is there, but you resist it. And if you want to go hardcore, you can actually prolong that breath hold, but like, you know, when you're really, really urging to breathe, you can start doing the hacks to relax. You know, do your fingers and toes and flutter your eyelids and relax your stomach in and out. And that will give you another 10 or 15 seconds of a breath hold because you're really relaxing. And then, you know, at the end of that breath hold, you can even contract your full body, like you would do a progressive muscle relaxation, where you contract every muscle in your body and really raise the carbon dioxide as much as you can. And at that point, you're at maximum carbon dioxide. So you've held your breath, the carbon dioxide's built up, you've even, you know, worked your body. And again, that's comfortably uncomfortable because you really want to breathe. And at that point, you're on maximum hypoxia. You've actually tricked your body into becoming hypoxic. And we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of that forced hypoxia. Now, normally hypoxia is not a good thing. I mean, if you're in hospital, if your blood oxygen concentration goes below 95%, you know, the alarms go off and they start bringing oxygen in and putting you in intensive care. But you can actually get, and you know, oximeters aren't that accurate below 70%. But I've had my oximeter reading down into the low 30, 35, 40% through this hypoxia. Again, I don't know how accurate that is, but you can actually cause very temporary hypoxia, and that's stressing every cell in your body. Every cell in your body is freaking out at that point. But what it does, it actually forces those cells to become more efficient. But at the end point, when you've at the end of that breath hold, you're really dysphoric. You really want to breathe. You then do the lyrical breath. You start to do the recovery breath, and that's like, oh, it's so joyful. Suddenly you've got breath back in your lungs. You can get rid of that extra carbon dioxide, and then you have these few bigger breaths during the recovery phase, which I call the lyrical phase, which is sort of creative. Your body can then just adjust itself into homeostasis. And then what happens, which is not emphasized by a lot of Wim Hof practitioners, but I really like to emphasize, is to go into the stillness breath. And you'll find there'll be a period after you've done that, because when you're hypoxic, your brain will turn itself off. It's a forced mindfulness, because when your whole body's hypoxic, that 25% of oxygen that your brain's normally taking, your brain decides, hey, I don't need to think anymore. I just need to save the oxygen for my vital organs. So your brain actually turns itself off. So when you come into the stillness breath, your brain is hardly working. So it's a forced meditation, and you'll find your breath will come down, and you'll breathe much less than you would even at baseline. And I find for myself, I can get my pulse rate about 10 beats per minute below my resting pulse. And I don't know any other activity that I can actually drop my pulse below my resting pulse rate by 10 beats per minute. So at this point, and you're actively doing nothing. You're really going into stillness because you're not thinking, you're hardly breathing, your heart is hardly beating. And this is homeostasis. This is actually really blissful. And to revel in that bliss state, because in that bliss state, your hormones come back into balance, your body comes back into balance, your thought processes come back into balance. And there's a saying that the greatest movement comes from the stillest point. So if you can experience that still point, that gives you the greatest ability to move and be resilient and work in the world. So really enjoying, and it's blissful. So you've gone through these 2 periods of dysphoria. When you're hyperventilated, it's uncomfortable. When you're at the end of the breath hold, it's uncomfortable. But when you're in that still point of hardly breathing, it's the most comfortable you can be in your body. And to experience the most comfort in your body, it's not just good for your mental state and your physical state. Every cell in your body appreciates it, and the mitochondria appreciate it. And you've sort of forced your body to declutter itself. You've really stressed the cells and the cellular machinery. And when you do that, it gives them, like you get mitogenesis. You actually make new mitochondria. you get autophagy. So any proteins that are misfolded start to get broken down and made into new proteins. Any cells that were at the edge of their lifespan, they weren't functioning properly, they were a bit aberrant, they were aging, they actually get apoptosis, they get recycled and they get, programmed cell death. So it's like decluttering your whole cellular machinery. And when you do that, just like decluttering your house, everything becomes more efficient. Now, if you're in a workshop with the tools strewn everywhere and things in the fridge that are past their use-by date, it's really hard to sort of make a nice meal or do a job. But if you know exactly where everything is, you can just go and grab a tool, things become easy. Well, that happens with your cellular machinery when you do these sort of stressful activities. I mean, we can talk a lot about this, but that's just sort of the overview there.
No, guys, this is you have no idea how you just got, like, in 8 minutes, very condensed, a recipe for prolonging your life. CO2 tolerance we covered with the benefits, and all you need to do, just whenever you go for a walk, just practice it. It's easy. When you do your shopping, just get into the habit of, can I do more with less? Can I do that? When I exercise, can I do the same? And then if you can add a daily practice of that protocol, which is a little bit modified of the Wim Hof method, with this, relaxing time, Shavasana is the most important yoga practice. So don't jump from one cycle to the next cycle without adding a 2-3 minutes recovery time between the two rounds. That's really important. And when you have this, 20 minutes, I do have 20 minutes every day, it's life transforming. So really that idea of, okay, I'm going to artificially play with my CO2 level. I reduce my CO2 level. So as a result, because I've reduced my CO2 level, I'm going to be able to hold my breath longer, because the CO2 is the trigger to breathe. As a result, because it takes for a while for the CO2 to come to the point where I need to breathe, I give time for the oxygen level to drop to the point where it can declutter my cells. And then after that, with all this stress, I produce the hormones of happiness. If you want to experience euphoria, you need to experience dysphoria first. They are connected.
But just on that, there's a warning here. You want to do this in a relaxed situation where you're sitting or lying, not when you're doing, driving, not underwater. Even though you can prolong your breath hold a long time using this method, you don't want to use it, because there is a thing called shallow water blackout, where you can become so hypoxic that you'll pass out for an instant. And if you're sitting or lying, that's okay, because you'll just come to. But if you're underwater or you're operating machinery, you can die. So that's just a caveat, that you really don't want to do this in a very comfortable, controlled situation. But having said that, this is a really potent activity to activate your whole body. And I mean, there's a little bit of an explanation I can give. It's as if you're taking your body out of its comfort zone, but you're forcing your body to clean its act up, and you become more efficient. Your cellular machinery becomes more efficient. And if you have more mitochondria and they're more efficient, suddenly you've got more energy. Suddenly you can eat less and actually do more. And if you're eating less, then you're actually spending less money on less resources on digestion and less energy on digestion. So you've actually got more energy to direct on what you want. So this is a really way of upgrading the whole machinery of your body. Yeah.
And at the same time, you get all the benefits of meditation. So but meditation is complicated. You have to do nothing. This whole thing is you're constantly doing something. And that's what I love about breath work. You're busy. You're busy doing this. You're following your routine. You've got your rounds to do. And at the end, I get, as Mark said, your heart rate is dropping. You have all those insights. I call it you microdose a little bit, because you get this, the impact of reducing oxygen to the brain. It's always safe, but reducing oxygen to the brain gets you to actually shut down the prefrontal cortex and get to really your limbic system only being oxygenated. So yeah, you get to have a real,
when you think about perfect balance and homeostasis and bliss, you actually, if you're in homeostasis, you're doing nothing. You don't have to do anything to balance your body, because you're already in balance. So the idea of actively doing nothing is really powerful. Now, you may think you're doing nothing, but there's always less you can do.
Mm.
You know, you can breathe less, you can beat your heart less, you can think less. So so these breathing exercises are ways of tricking your body into actually doing less. And that becomes really potent. Now, there's also a whole lot of things that happen in the body. So when you have dysphoria, you know, the point of over breathing, you know, when you're dizzy, or the point of the end of the breath hold, that's dysphoric, it's uncomfortable. But when you have that dysphoria, you upregulate the endorphin receptors. You actually secrete a chemical called dynorphin. And that dynorphin goes through your body. It increases the number and the sensitivity of your endorphin receptors. So, you know, the saying, no pain, no gain. You know, I'm not into pain, I'm into comfortably uncomfortable. But when you go to these points of being comfortably uncomfortable, you upregulate your endorphin receptors. So you actually upregulate your ability to experience bliss. Whereas if you're just in your comfort zone all the time, and you might know this, you know, you can be comfortable all the time, but you're not really happy. You're not really blissful. You're just comfortable. You know, you're on the couch and relaxed. But forcing yourself to be comfortably uncomfortable actually increases your ability to have supreme comfort and supreme bliss, which is really powerful for every part of your health and for your physiology, your mental health, and for your life in general.
Here we go, guys. You got the recipe for wellness. You know, a little bit of CO2 tolerance, a routine of breath work. And now I just want to say
we haven't given the recipe yet.
No, but you're going to give the recipe, the poem, but before, you know, regardless of the practice, making space for some kind of breathing practice. You know, I find that these days, my breathing technique would be to do just coherent breathing for 15 minutes. And just being okay, being with that, with just, can I breathe less and less? And can I just be with that? And I love it. So it's not so much about a breathing technique and following it. It's just creating space so that you can be with yourself a little bit. And really, this is what we need these days, because we're constantly bombarded by so many information, and we don't know where to find sense of the world. And
well, I think the ancients knew this. You know, when they were chanting, and praying is often controlling breath. You know, because and singing is often controlling breath. So these are all practices that help us anchor breath control.
Hey ho! So, Mark, read us your poem, or tell us your poem of the recipe to wellness.
Okay, so there's a couple of, I think we're going to end soon, but okay, so yeah, the recipe for wellness is again, it's just a summary of holistic health that I was trying to work out all the factors for to being healthy, and it ended up as a poem. And it's very, very short, because the recipe for wellness is simple, and it is: bathe in beautiful water, prepare delicious food, make the most of every breath, dance through every mood, tend the soil beneath your feet, embrace sunshine from above, share your gifts with all the world, and fill your life with love. So that's super simple. And I think if we've got time, there's one other poem I'd love to share. And this was a poem I came up with at the start of the pandemic, start of last year, when I was thinking of all the things you can do at home with no money and no equipment and no training that will reduce anxiety and improve immunity. And I started writing down all these different activities that would improve immunity, and they all had research behind it. Now, actually, this poem has 50 different activities in it. And if you go to my blog, you can link from each activity to the research. And there's meta-analyses and randomized controlled trials and proper peer-reviewed research behind each one of these activities. I call this the whirl of wellness. So it's how to go from wired and tired to chilled and fulfilled, or how to go from stressed and depressed to joyfully blessed. So this is the whirl of wellness. Hold someone's hand, gaze into their eyes, go barefoot in nature, bask in sunrise. Choose a dance partner and go find your groove. Do Tai Chi or yoga, mindfully move. Share a massage, enjoy healing touch. Focus on one thing and don't think too much. Make time for a hobby, play chess, fly a kite. Make use of your hands, draw, paint, sew or write. Help someone in need. donate to a cause, play games, meditate, read stuff from bookstores, turn off your screens, get a good sleep, declutter, spark joy, and love what you keep. Dig around in the garden, pick up a guitar, slip into a bathtub, sauna, or spa. Care for a pet, take up a sport. Go on vacation and make your home a resort. Lie in a hammock and relieve pent-up stress. Relax and do nothing, and then do even less. Laugh out loud, share a joke, give someone a kiss, say a prayer, chant a mantra, and follow your bliss.
Thank you so much, Marc. As always, I told you guys, I told you, Ben, I didn't lie. Marc, you are absolutely a joy and gold, and thank you so much for your contribution to the world. I put Marc's email, but otherwise, feel free to reach out. I'll happily connect you with everything that Marc has been sharing. Happily do that. And yeah, thank you everyone for making space, for breathing.
Thank you.
Over to you, Hannah.
Yeah, huge thank you to you, Marc and Alex, for that incredible conversation. So informative. Do listen to the playbacks, everybody, for all the incredible information that was shared there about the breath and the incredible practices as well. And just looking forward to to hearing more about the course that you two are running as well. And all the details are in the chat box for everybody here. And once again, just a big heartfelt thank you to you both for coming to the Inspiration Festival and sharing all your inspiration and incredible poetry and wisdom of the breath. Thank you so much. So we're going to take a short little break. We're running ever so slightly behind schedule because that was just such an incredible talk between these two gentlemen. We've got the amazing Pete Warnock with us from Naturally Ecstatic, where we shall be having an incredible conversation about, guess what, breathwork. So we're going to take a short break. We'll probably take 5 to 6 minutes and we will be right back. So go make a cup of tea and come back and hear Pete, and I'll see you shortly.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.